All right, g'day everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Running for Resilience podcast. Benny here, ably assisted, not assisted, but we got Lili Kudos Mooney back. Welcome back, Kudos.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And today, man who needs no introduction, Tim Oberg. Thanks for joining us, mate.
I can't say how excited I am to be here, although I'm a bit nervous that I'm double teamed. So
don't worry, we'll go easy. We'll go easy on you, mate. Before we everyone sort of knows who you are, and before we get into all the parkrun stuff, want to know a bit about your background, and you and I have spoken about your story where you're in the UK and how parkrun started. But can you, for me and for Lili, tell us who is Tim from start pretty early?
Yep.
And then hopefully, paint us a bit of a picture about what it was like being a young Tim Oberg.
Yeah, right. Wow. Okay. Well, so I'm from Brisbane originally, and spent the first sort of 22, 23 years of my life in Brisbane. Mum and dad both teachers, so I ended up going down that path. I went to Nudgee College in Brisbane that you're probably familiar with, Benny, through rugby circles. And then I always had this vision that I was going to work in sport. So right from probably the age of probably 14 or 15, I was already thinking, right, am I studying the right subjects in high school that's going to take me on that sporting pathway? And so that's what I did. I went into university in Brisbane at the University of Queensland and did a human movement degree. But just to hedge my bets, I also did an education degree, family of teachers and all.
Siblings? How many?
One brother.
One brother.
Yeah, one
older,
older brother, 2 years older than me. And so I was always thinking I was going to work in sport, but then in my last year of university, we had these agencies come and talk to us at university saying, come and teach in London. And they're like, you'll earn, I think it was £100 a day. And so me and all my friends are there with the calculator going, oh, hang on, that's $300.
Not like, now. What's the exchange
rate? That's great. Yeah. Well, back then,
maybe it is.
It was about $300 back then. And we were thinking, that's awesome. Let's go to London. So I ended up over in London thinking that I was going over there to teach for 2 years. And I ended up staying for 10 because I ended up starting a travel and events business called Tim the Tour Man. And, the funny thing is that so many of if you think about it from a demographic point of view, the people who over that next 8 years I took on, I'm not going to lie, they were pretty boozy trips around Europe. Then came back to Australia and probably were the people that did parkrun as well in when they were in their 30s and 40s and having kids and so on. And every now and then I still get someone reaching out to me on LinkedIn and going, are you the guy that used to run pub crawls in London back in the early 2000s? And I'm like,
Shepherd's Bush walkabout, did that get a run in?
All that stuff, they absolutely. So, I think they were the glory days of being an Australian expat in London because a lot of those pubs they're all gone now. So, but so I was over there. I was traveling. I met my now wife, and I guess if we sort of fast forward a little bit. We got engaged, and my wife's from South Africa, and we decided we would get married in South Africa and we would return and live in Australia. So in that sort of last 18 months that I was living in the UK and running my business, I thought, right, well, when I go back to Australia, I don't want to work in the travel industry. Like I was sort of over it in the sense that it was one of those kind of industries, you're just away from home all the time because we're traveling a lot of drinking and so on. And I thought like, I'm done with that. So I was like, okay, now is the time that I want to work in sport. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. So I started looking around at ideas and looking at different, gym franchises and different, what could I study certain things that would qualify me to, maybe go and do physio or whatever it would be. And in that time, I found Parkrun. And that's where Parkrun came from. So I had, and if I go right into the detail, I had a little dog that my wife and I found on the street, and his name was Clarence. And Clarence and I would always go running together. I had my little running buddy. And so whether it was, summer in London, which isn't admittedly that hot, or in the winter, I'd dress him up in his little jacket. And
what type of dog was he?
A Bitzer. Okay. But you would say he looked like a sort of a chunky Jack Russell. That's probably the best way to describe him. And so I, even in the middle of winter, I'd put his little coat on him and we'd go running around the Thames and so on. And so I was always out running with my dog, and I was in a triathlon club in Wimbledon called the Wimbledon Windmilers, because there's a windmill in the middle of Wimbledon Common in London. And someone just said to me, they said, oh, do you know that there's somewhere you can go on a Saturday and you can take your dog for a 5K run. And
What year is this?
This is 2010.
10.
Yeah, 2010. So Parkrun at this point was, I'm going to say 7 years old.
04, didn't it start?
04.
04.
Oh, geez, I should know that. Anyway, yeah, something like that.
Testing you,
you
mate.
can see I've been out
Testing
of it for
you.
a while. But yeah, there was about 60 events at the time, and I think my barcode number for all those parkrun enthusiasts is about 84,000 or something like that. So, it's in the millions now. But
that's a low number.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
to
when you
hold
say
on to.
84,000 is a low number.
Well,
but yeah, there was about
It was all just in the UK. How many did you say? 50 events?
there was about
just in-
60 events in the UK, and there was also a couple in Denmark, but they were managed from the UK. So Denmark wasn't set up as a country, so to speak. And so
they're being managed remotely from the UK.
Yeah, essentially. I think it was 2 or 3 events or something like that. So anyway, Clarence and I went along to Parkrun in Wimbledon, and I went specifically with the aim of seeing what my dog's PB was. I thought, because I had my own, PB, and I was like, I wonder what my dog's
What
PB
is it? Lily and I were asking. We were going to
We were
ask Tim about that.
wondering, yeah.
What my all-time
Parkrun
PB?
PB. Sorry to cut the story.
Okay, my all-time PB is 18:25.
Ooh,
So-
you've got me by 4 seconds.
Yes. The funny thing is the founder of Parkrun, Paul Sinton Hewitt, his all-time Parkrun PB is 1 second faster than mine. So he's got me by 1 second, and I've got you by 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
That was a while ago, though, I will say.
Well, mine too. So
Yeah, pre kids. My body hasn't been the same since. Anyway, so I went there with the purpose of
Seeing how fast your dog was.
seeing how fast the dog was. And we went around in 20 minutes 20 with the dog, and I was like, oh, he's pretty quick. But then hung around, didn't go for coffee, but I did hang around, and I was like, oh, this is cool, like what's going on here. And I went back again another time, and but it's not actually shown in my Parkrun history because I forgot my barcode. We've all been there.
don't forget
Hashtag
your
don't forget your
barcode.
barcode.
Yeah, exactly. So, but after that second time is when I sent an email to Parkrun HQ, which at the time was really just Paul and probably maybe one other person. And I just said, introduced myself, and I said, look, I'm going back to Australia in 3 or 4 months. Is there any interest in expanding Parkrun? So
You'd just done one parkrun.
I've done 2.
And
Yeah.
so you've only done 2. So what made you think that it would be so good to bring over to Australia?
Well, I was actively looking for ideas and,
Yeah.
and things to do and things that could work. And my motivation at the time was, it was never, this could be a job. It was never about that. I thought, this is a good thing. And if I bring this to Australia and set up some parkrun events, I will network and I will meet people, and it'll be fun. It was never, I never thought that it would become a big organisation with staff or anything like that, because, at the time, even in the UK, it wasn't. I imagine then, I don't think, Paul, for example, I don't think he was taking a salary from Parkrun at the time.
He was just managing it in his spare
He was
time.
just the founder. He started it because he wanted to run with his mates. He never.
He got injured, didn't he? And that's why he.
Yeah.
He was. He,
Yeah. Well, he
can
wanted
you tell
to,
that? Sorry,
yes.
the very first parkrun.
Well, yeah.
was
So
the short of that?
Paul was a very competitive runner, and he got injured. Tripped over his dogs actually running. I'm not sure if that's in the official version of events or not, but yeah, Paul basically fell over his dogs running one day, and was injured. And didn't want to lose that social connection with his running friends. So he said, right, I'm going to start an event and you're going to come to me.
And he'll
and
time
he'll
it.
manage
And
it.
he'll
Yeah,
time
he goes,
Yeah,
so
wow.
you come to me on a Saturday, because when Paul was growing up in Johannesburg, his running club in Johannesburg did a weekly 5K time trial, or I think it was 3-mile time trial. And so he was essentially just replicating this thing that worked when he was a young fella in South Africa. And he said, I'm just going to bring that and I'm going to stick it in Bushy Park. It just means my mates are going to come and have a coffee with me on a Saturday morning. So that was the sole motivation, was I'm injured, but I still want to hang around my running friends. And I think even now, if you look at how big parkrun's become, and obviously running for resilience, if we take it all back to the why, we just want to be with our mates.
That's what I was thinking about, yeah. Because when I started Parkrun, I guess I liked the structure and the routine of going at like Saturday at 8 o'clock and pushing myself, but that was 8 years ago now. And I probably don't need that motivation of running with other people to get me actually to go for a run.
Sure.
But what keeps me going back is the people. And it's the same with running for resilience. It's all about those connections and the relationships that you form.
Yeah, and there's so many little slogans you can say about Parkrun and about R4R. It's not about the run, it's about the coffee, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately the core of everything is we just want to have connection, with community, with friends and so on. So, but yeah, skipping back anyway to the story, that's how Parkrun started. And so my motivation was to bring it here, set it up, or set up an event, and I guess just see what would happen. Now, a few things were very fortuitous about that time. My wife and I decided we were going to move to the Gold Coast. At the time, the mayor of the Gold Coast was the late, great Ron Clark, so one of Australia's greatest ever runners. So, of course, as soon as I rang City of Gold Coast, they were on board. The mayor advocated for it, and a lady called Samantha Hughes, who is still the head of the Active and Healthy program on the Gold Coast. She's a former Gold Coast Marathon winner. So she was a runner. Ron was a runner. So it was a pretty easy sell. I'm like, hey, I've got this running thing, and they're like, bring it on.
Where do we sign?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that was, again, just lucky was when I was in South Africa for my wedding, which we did on the way home. My brother-in-law said, my best friend is the head of marketing for Adidas in Melbourne. He goes, here's his details. So before I'd even returned to Australia, I'd lined up a meeting with Adidas, which became our first sponsor. So I think we had one event. And it's funny because you guys would appreciate this. It's very hard to get sponsorship in sort of any sphere, let alone sporting events. And I went down, I had one meeting and signed a 3-year deal with Adidas. I'm thinking, sponsors, so easy to get a sponsor. Little did I know. But yeah, so I had these two things that really sort of just happened in terms of luck, which was very receptive council. And I would find later that not all councils would be receptive. And then just a lucky introduction to Adidas, who became a fantastic partner for the first 3 years of Parkrun. And that was ultimately, it was that funding through that sponsorship that after about the first probably year and a half meant that I was able to stop doing any other work and just focus on Parkrun. So yeah, set up the first event.
Do you remember the first event?
Oh yeah, very clearly.
Did many people come?
Yeah, it was amazing. So the first event, the home of Parkrun in Australia is Main Beach.
Yeah.
Have we been there?
We have,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, okay, just checking.
The mothership.
I'm doing surfers this weekend.
Oh, are you?
Yep, there,
Is
yep.
she jet setter? Have you had a photo with the sign? There's a sign there now. Maybe depends when you went there, but there's a sign that says this is the home of the first Parkrun in Australia.
remember
I
seeing
don't.
a sign,
Yeah,
but-
I didn't get a photo, but I'll have to go back.
Yeah, well, you would.
Yeah.
So Main Beach Parkrun, we had about, I should know these numbers. I'm going to say 112 at the first event, but something like that. And none of us knew what we were doing. Like, we had the technology, but it was the first time we'd used it. We hadn't even run a practice event.
What do you mean technology? Like the
So,
timing?
so obviously now you've got the app and all that kind of stuff. So back then you had a handheld barcode scanner. Do you guys remember them?
Yeah.
So there were these little black devices, the little handheld barcode scanners. You had a stopwatch for a timer. And then the back end sort of software, I guess, that ran it was very clunky. It worked, but it was very clunky. And so we were there and we were like, I hope it works. And we had obviously the barcodes, which you still have today and whatnot. But yeah, we got through that first event very successfully. There were no issues. And it just grew steadily from there on the Gold Coast. So that was April 2011. And then what I did to, I guess, try and grow was I created all these Facebook pages. And, Facebook then versus Facebook now is much more primitive. You didn't have anywhere the amount of sort of targeting that you can do now that was available then. But I just created these Facebook pages: Brisbane Parkrun, Sydney Parkrun, Melbourne Parkrun, Perth Parkrun, etc. I just created them.
To sort of get interest.
Yeah. They were prospecting pages,
Yeah.
essentially. It was like, do you want to bring Parkrun to Sydney, etc. But it worked. So we had the Brisbane Parkrun was the next one, which was New Farm Parkrun so the Brisbane Parkrun page became New Farm Parkrun. So that was event number 2. You done that one?
No.
Okay,
I'll
well,
have to get there.
Get up there. And then event number 3, I got to get this right, don't I? Event number 3 was Albert in Melbourne.
Oh, in
that.
Melbourne, yeah.
I reckon you've probably done
Yeah.
that one.
Done
Yeah.
Had 1,100 people the one when I did it.
It's
It
a
was just before the
big
second
event.
Lions test. They had all the British fans in their Lions gear. It
Yeah.
was huge.
Yeah.
I went and asked them, is this the biggest one ever? And they said no. Their biggest one was this January during Australian Open. They had 1,400.
Yeah,
And that's the
right.
biggest one in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. Regular.
No, they get big crowds. And it's a perfect course for it. You know, it's just around the lake.
Yeah.
So easy. So
So that was number 3.
That was number 3, and then number 4 was St. Peter's in Sydney.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
done that.
So that was the sort of the start of it, and then it just sort of it went crazy. So because I think I mean it didn't go crazy for about another 6 months. It was when I gave up work and just focused on parkrun full time. Where if you look at the sort of the growth chart, it goes there, and then I give up work and it goes whoosh like that.
So what's like a whoosh? It's like, so the first 6 months you got 4. What was 12 months? 2 years?
Yeah.
Is it
So
just-
I mean, look, these are just rough numbers, but yeah. So first 12 months, you're looking at maybe 8 events, but then in the next 12 months, we would have launched probably 15 events. And then the next 12 months, it was probably 30 events.
So it's like doubling
It was
every-
doubling year on year. I mean, we always used to refer it as exponential growth. I don't know if that's the correct term, but the curve was just going up and up and up.
And did you see that, or you might not know, but in other countries? Because I don't know this, but I just feel like it's really popular in Australia and maybe not so much other countries. Do you think that's like why?
Yeah. Well, I think. I mean, look. First of all, it is popular in other countries.
Oh, yeah,
but Australia is unique in that it's really the only country outside of the UK where not only has there been event growth, but also commercial sustainability in terms of government funding, sponsorship, etc. And I think, and this isn't saying, hey, look at me, but it was because I was working on it full time. Whereas the other countries were run by volunteers, and the level of commitment that you could get from a volunteer country manager versus someone who was working on it as a business is quite different. Because ultimately, as much as at the front end, Parkrun is this community and everything, but behind the scenes, it is a business. You have to run it like a business. You have to have a commercial mindset. You have to be able to pay the bills, and there are a lot of costs that go on to running what is now a big organisation like Parkrun. So,
And how did you manage that with obviously the mission of Parkrun, which is a happy, healthy planet, something I've bought into, that I believe in. I believe it's possible. But how did you balance that, the mission with the commercial side of things?
So my view with that was always that in terms of any partnership or collaboration, that it was always about values. And so any brand or company that would want to partner with us, if I felt that there was an alignment of values, then I knew that we could make it work, because ultimately that sort of core beliefs were going to be the same, even if maybe the front end product might not have looked obvious. So, for example, let's say Stockland, which is a property developer. Okay, so you go, well, how does that make a healthier and happier planet? But actually, when you saw what their values were about, which was about trying to create communities, build communities where people were going to be happier and healthier and connected, then it was a no-brainer, because you put parkruns inside those built communities and you bring the bricks and mortar to life. So that's what we always talked about. You build the bricks and mortar, we'll bring it to life with Parkrun. So I just think it was about having pretty clear, a pretty clear compass about what was an appropriate partnership and what wasn't. And, we had approaches from lots of brands, as you can imagine, that just were not appropriate, fast food, soft drinks, etc., that we would have just never aligned with. And I understand why other sports do. There's a commercial imperative, but, we just didn't need it or want it enough to lower our standard, I guess, of who we would partner with. So, because you're right, it was about healthier and happier planet. Is this partnership going to contribute to a healthier and happier planet? And if the answer was no, then the answer was no.
Kudos.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking...
Got to put you on the spot. I got a ton of questions.
Yeah.
Timbo, but-
Have you then... was that hard to sort of say no? Because I imagine you would have got a lot of big brands or organisations wanting to get involved. Is that hard as like a early days when you're smaller to say no to, the big guys?
I think we were lucky in that at no point were we desperate for funding. There was, as I say, Adidas came on really early. Then we had Suncorp Bank, which is probably not that well known down here, but it's well known in Queensland. So Suncorp Bank, you probably all know Suncorp Stadium, where the footy is. But and then we had a few other brands come on, Stockland, like I mentioned, and then Medibank came on, and Medibank's obviously still a partner today. So, there was always sort of either enough partnerships or government funding there that we didn't ever really have to think about aligning with something that we didn't believe in. So, to answer your question, it wasn't hard. And we just knew that ultimately we had to have the trust of the community, and that if we broke that trust by aligning with a brand that wasn't appropriate, then it's really hard to get that back. And it was just, that was the ultimate thing, the trust and staying true to our values.
And aside from that, obviously not conflicting your values for commercial success or whatever the word is, were there any other growing pains that you experienced as Afra really sort of took off in those first couple of years, maybe those first 5-6 years? Pardon?
You said Afra.
As Parkrun, sorry. I meant Parkrun, sorry. We'll edit it.
I know we're just translating this all into how Afra is going to grow.
Yeah, exactly. But what are some of the growing pains?
So many growing pains. And, you and I have spoken a lot about these things, but even just things like, and I think this is really relevant for R4R, which is like volunteer structure. Okay, so how do you grow and cookie cut the product, ensuring that the quality is going to be what you need it to be, that people are going to have that parkrun experience, whether they're here, or here, which is obviously no doubt the same with R4R. You want people to have, it doesn't have to be exactly the same because you want each thing to have its own flavour, but it still has to have the right look, feel, and values, as we said. So, creating a volunteer structure that at the time we didn't have a global template. So I remember we were probably on about, I'm going to say about 30 events at the time. And within that 30 events, there was probably about a dozen event directors who were sort of like inner sanctum kind of people who I was really leaning on for support and help and so on. And we had a call and basically we created a structure that I actually modelled on Flight Centre. I'd read a book about Flight Centre called Family Village Tribe, with the family being, well, in Flight Centre terms, the family being the store, the village being a group of stores, and the tribe being like the region. And so within Parkrun, the family became the event, the village became the other events in the local area, and the tribe was, the wider kind of Parkrun region. And so we created a volunteer model where you then had ambassadors, or we actually called them territory directors. So you had a territory directors who oversaw, the village and the family, and provided that level of support. So we had to sort of think on the fly about how we could create that, because otherwise, if I hadn't done that, then I would have had 100 events and I was their single point of contact. So I would have had 100 event directors on a Saturday morning saying the scanner's not working, and I would have,
at 8:20.
I wouldn't have been able to help anyone. So
how does that fit in though? Like Parkrun in the UK, is it Parkrun Australia and Parkrun whatever other country are like quite individual? Like, or do you all have to sort of follow the same?
It was then. Okay. So when I started Parkrun, it was on a license agreement, and what that meant was that so long as I abided by the terms of the license, we could kind of do what we wanted within reason, of course. So long as we delivered Parkrun in the way that they wanted, we had a fair bit of autonomy. And it was in probably about year 7 or 8 that changed, and Parkrun moved into a subsidiary model where it was basically controlled from the UK. So it's changed dramatically in that time. So yes, in that first period where we were on license, and also the UK was still relatively immature compared to now. So they had their own version, I guess, of what I've just talked about with the Family Village Tribe, but it wasn't a global template or structure. So we just came up with our own thing that was fit for purpose, and it worked incredibly well. So rather than having 100 events coming into me, it was every sort of 6 or 7 events had a territory director. And those bunch of territory directors then reported into me. But yeah, they took 95% of the support, I guess you would say, was dealt with at that other level, that lower level. And then it was only things that were kind of out of the box that needed to come to me. So I could focus on the actual strategy and the growth and so on and so forth.
And so there's the volunteer structure. Was there anything else? Any other growing pains? Like one we've been getting is like, especially with the Wednesday nights, some people don't like the big crowds. How have you guys managed that? And like, have you ever had feedback that, Parkrun, as it got bigger, that it lost what it was in the early days?
Yeah.
You have
and
had that?
I would agree with that too. So
but it's lost its way, not lost its way, lost what originally was.
Yeah, I mean, I can even use my local parkrun in Airlie Beach where I live. So for the first, 3 or 4 years, so that event's about to turn 10 years old. And so I'd say probably for the first 5 years, it was like 60 people a week.
Yeah.
You knew everybody. Like, you'd rock up and, like, I know all of you, sort of thing. But, like all things, it's growing. And so now you rock up and I'll know 20 people, and then there'll be another 50 locals who I don't know, and then there'll be 100 tourists.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just different. And so depending on your personality type and whatever, some people are going to much prefer smaller, intimate, where you know everyone. And others are going to want to go to the biggest events that they can find because of the bars and the atmosphere and all of that. So I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I think it totally comes down to personal preference. However, the growth does present growing pains, which would, you would be experiencing that at the dock, which is when you had 50 people there, no one would have blinked when you guys all went running past, because on any given afternoon, there's 50 people out running at the dock. But as soon as you put 450 people on that same path, there's logistical challenges, prams and dogs and people and all that kind of stuff. And so managing that growth is tricky, and we would be quite targeted with that. So if there was an event that did grow and that the specific course that event was on was just not managing it, then we would actively look to find another parkrun location nearby.
To try and take
the load.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would find that, if it was...
Just if the course couldn't the course that they chose just wasn't working.
Yeah, so, I mean, you could change the course. That would be an option, or change parts of the course. And, there are plenty of events that have had to modify their courses, change the start line or the finish line because of the congestion, and particularly after COVID when there was a lot more rules around social distancing and so on. But yeah, it was just, course A is getting too many people. Let's find a course B, and it would always have to be within sort of 10 minutes, because if you're telling people that they can go to another event but it's 15 minutes away, that won't work. So it would have to be nearby.
And did that work?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
I do remember though that Cleveland Parkrun, which is just outside of Brisbane in Redland Bay, that was getting too big. And I think, let's say they were getting 400 or something, or 300, and it was, for whatever reason, it was just getting too big at that course. So we said, all right, let's put another one nearby. And one of the regular Cleveland runners lived in the next suburb, which is Wynnum, which is on the water in Brisbane. And he said, I'll start one in Wynnum. And I'm like, brilliant, this is great, because half of those Cleveland runners, or a third of those Cleveland runners, will go to Wynnum. And then the day Wynnum launched, they had huge numbers, and I ring up Cleveland and they're like, no, we had record numbers. I was like, oh my God. So what we found, and again, you'll find this with R4R, is build it and they will come, which is you're not, when you start a new location, you're not just bringing existing people across, you're going to get a whole new bunch of people as well, who, for whatever reason, hadn't previously engaged, might have been too far, or they maybe just not even heard of it. So, but once it starts locally, they hear about it. So managing growth, definitely a big challenge. The other one is working with councils, which was pretty tricky. And, I mentioned earlier that not all councils were as welcoming as the Gold Coast were with the first event. And I can understand that when in the early days when Parkrun was an unknown thing, and you're ringing a council saying, oh, we've got this free running event, it's going to happen every week. First of all, they're not used to things happening every week. Like, events happen one-off or quarterly or whatever it might be. So when you say we're going to run this thing every week, they're like, oh, hang on, we haven't got a policy for that. So quite a lot of times, we were almost working with council to create the policy that would enable something like Parkrun to happen week on week. And, I know, Benny, when we've spoken and we've talked about growth, you just got to whoever you're talking to say, it's kind of like Parkrun, but on a Wednesday. And then they go, oh, okay, Parkrun, it's a running thing, it's every week. So people kind of get it now that there's this concept of meeting every week and doing this thing. But, 15 years ago, they're like, what? You're going to run every week? And so, we had a lot of councils that were pretty hard work in the early days. I mean, some councils said no.
Just risk aversion?
Risk aversion definitely being the main thing. They're thinking, oh, we don't want lots of people running all together every week at that time on that path that's already heavily used.
And that's because they just didn't understand the benefits of it? Or?
I think, I just think Parkrun was an unknown, and like we could have said to them, I'm sure we did say to them, oh, this is great for the community and connection, it brings people together, and they would have just gone, insurance, risk, we're not going to do it. So we could have tried to sell them on the benefits, but ultimately, their thing was we're risk averse, so we don't want to do this. And however, as Parkrun grew and more people became familiar with it, then it became an easier sell. Councils understood it. You didn't have to spend a long time explaining what Parkrun actually was to them because they'd heard of it or they'd been or whatever. So I think those things, funding, getting sponsors. As I said, the Adidas one was just lucky and at the time, but then from there, getting sponsors was very difficult, and not just getting them, but then being able to service them because sponsors, it's not a donation; they're not just giving you money. There's sponsorship rights that they then you need to be able to fulfill as an organisation. So, for the first, I don't know, probably 5 years, I was the only employee. Maybe 4 or 5, I was the only employee. Everyone else was some layer of volunteer. So, so challenges around that. But I think, look, ultimately, I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you guys are the same. When you're doing something good and you're putting it out there into the universe is going to come back. And, Parkrun was that good thing. It still is that good thing. R4R is that good thing. And, the amount of goodwill that you guys have built and are building around the brand and around everything you do means that all these challenges that are going to come up, you've got such a good team of people that we're going to get through them.
Well, and thank you on behalf of R4R. You've already solved 2 of our headaches, growing pains. One, people don't know, Tim is an advisor to us. One, you paved the way with the council, so thank you for that. But secondly, also, when we became a formal charity, first thing was, shit, we better get insurance. It's about time to insure this thing because the first 4 years, probably the doc was on the hook if something happened.
Yeah.
But thank you for helping sort that out through the introduction of the Canberra, Capital Athletics.
Yeah.
That's enough about Parkrun. What are you doing now? You've obviously finished that up.
I did, yeah.
In the pandemic, you finished at
2022,
just after, yep.
Do you still go to your parkrun or a parkrun?
I actually, the last time I went was New Year's Day, and there's 2 reasons why I haven't gone regularly. One is my kids play sport every Saturday morning, pretty much, and the other is
you got four, had your fourth.
4 kids, and we just had a baby 5 months ago. So I've got a 13, 11, 9, and a baby. Sorry, 8 and a baby. So we had a bit of a break and went again. But so life is busy. But the other thing is, I've got this calf injury. I've actually got a blown calf. I think I told you already. I blew my calf out playing touch football 2 nights ago. So I can't run tonight at R4R, but I just keep hurting it. And anytime I get back into running, I'll run for a couple of weeks and blow my calf. And I'm like, so if there's any physios listening to this podcast who want to give me some advice on recurring calf injuries, please reach out because it's extremely frustrating. But everyone tells me the calf injury is an old man injury, and I'm 47 now, so,
We know a good sports chiro we've had on, Mark Trevovic.
Going to be there tonight?
No, but we can put in an emergency call for it.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've had a few injuries over the years, mate. So look, to answer your question, look, I haven't been for a while, but I absolutely am still passionate about everything that Parkrun stands for, and am incredibly proud of, where it is and all the impacts that Parkrun's had over so many years and so many people. It's an incredible thing. It's been incredible in my own life personally, let alone what it's done for the world, essentially. So I still love it, still recommend people to go and everything like that. Very proud of it. But but what I'm doing now, to answer your question, so when I finished up in 2022, I remember I sat there with a piece of paper and I said, right, I'm at a point in my life now where I guess I'm fortunate that I can now really just focus on what I'm most passionate about. And I sat there with a piece of paper and I drew all these words and blah, blah. It was a big mess. But the thing that was in the middle of it all was healthy kids. And I guess, as a dad, that was something I was living with my own kids, but also as a teacher, seeing in schools what's going on, which is a lot of unhealthy kids. I knew that is where I wanted to try and have impact for the next phase of my professional life. So created a charity called the Healthy Kids Project, and I've been working on a number of programs over the last 3 years, and there's sort of two main ones that are, I guess, operating and that I really have a lot of passion for and believe in, and one is called Fresh Fruit Friday, where I'm working with primary schools and supermarkets to see a box of fruit and vegetables provided to schools every Friday, as the name would suggest. There are a lot of kids who come to school with no food, let alone unhealthy food. So just to try and, I guess, expose children in need to fruit and vegetables, and a lot of kids will pick up a piece of celery and they've never had it before. Like, what is this thing? And so just trying to create some exposure. I know it's not going to solve the world's problems, but it's a good step. It's a step, right? It's a step, and I'm a believer that if you can influence kids at school, they can go home and try and influence up the chain to mum and dad and across to siblings and so on. And if there's one child who discovers a piece of fruit or a vegetable that they like through the program, then that's a win. So there's about 60 schools around the country that are in that program at the moment, and obviously, there's 10,000 schools or something in Australia, so there's a lot of opportunity for that program to grow. And then the other program, which I guess is more aligned with what we've been talking about, is surprise, surprise, a running program. It's called the Rad Run Club, and it's basically a digital platform that enables primary schools to put on run clubs, typically before school, but it can be used anytime. The school can use it kind of as they see fit. So it could be a before school run club, lunchtime run club, after school care, etc. And the hook for kids is that when they get registered, so their parents register them, and they put in the school and the house. And within particularly primary schools, earning points for your house is quite a big deal. So basically the hook is come to school, run around the oval, earn house points, and then houses, whichever house wins the end of year trophy, they all celebrate and eat the pizza or whatever it would be. So, but look, it's super simple. I'm not. It's not a revolution, but a lot of schools already do some sort of run club. But typically it's pen and paper and Excel spreadsheets. And if there's one thing I know from being a teacher is that teachers are time poor, and they don't want, if you go to them with a program that's going to require them to do more, they don't have capacity. So I'm going to schools with a solution that enables them to do less. Which is you can do exactly what you're doing, but here's the platform that makes it way easier. The kids just scan their QR codes every lap. They run around the oval, scan, run around the oval, scan. So it's not like Parkrun where you just scan at the end. This one you scan when you get there and you scan each lap. So, and again, not like Parkrun, you don't have to be there at the start. So let's say the school have it running on the oval for 20 minutes. If you get there 10 minutes in, it's great. You just scan and away you go and you earn your house points. So, and the goal of that one, much like Parkrun, is it's not just about getting fitter and the physical benefits, but the RAD in the Rad Run Club actually stands for resilience, attitude, and determination. So we're trying to instill these sort of emotional characteristics in primary school children via the platform of a running event or running and walking. So, and it's really working well. I mean, it's just in pilot phase at the moment. Got about half a dozen schools that are using it.
Any in Canberra?
No, all in Queensland at the moment. So, but Canberra schools, bring it on. Just
radrun.club. I don't know if we've told you about recess for
No, you have. It's amazing.
We should be getting that into the recess schools.
And, conceptually, if you look at end goal, it's the same end goal. The same end goal is healthier and happier kids, and we're doing it in a school environment where there's that captured audience, and I just think whether it's your program or my program, ultimately we're all looking for that same thing, and we should therefore all be supporting each other and collaborating and sharing best practice and what are you doing that's working and what am I doing that's working and so on. So
Well, how can we help? Apart from making intros to schools, the schools here that we're working with, how else can we help?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the thing with the Rad Run Club, the thing with Fresh Fruit Friday, it's just awareness. I don't do it. I haven't done any marketing on any of these things. It's all word of mouth and collaboration.
Do you have suppliers like that bring the fruit in? How does that all work?
No, we just work with the local supermarkets. So it's so basically when a school comes in for Fresh Fruit Friday, we just look at the map and say, where's your nearest supermarket? And we go straight to them. And look, not all supermarkets say yes. That's the challenge because
you haven't partnered with like a Coles or a Woolies or.
Look, that's the plan. I've had some conversations with Woolies already. So Woolies, if you're listening, come on, get back to me. But that is the way to scale it, is for it to actually have a top-down partnership. But I've also had some chats with the team at Oz Harvest as to how they work. And so Oz Harvest work on the unwanted fruit and vegetables and other items from supermarkets. And so possibly we'll also look at going down that path as well. So. So for the Rad Run Club, it's ready to go. So anyone that's listening can just go to radrun.club, send us a message. It takes me about 5 minutes to set a school up in the system, and you download the app, and away you go. So it's ready to go. So I would love to promote that here, and why not? And
we'll wrap things up in a few minutes because we've got to get down to half an hour. You're in Canberra, obviously.
I'm in Canberra.
Believe it or not. What brings you down, firstly? We don't get you down here too often.
No, first of all, I didn't bring a jumper. And it was November in Canberra.
Well, you would think you wouldn't need one.
I thought it was going to be fine. And I walked out of the hotel this morning and it was 1 degree.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I love coming here. It's actually it's a beautiful city. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting in a studio in Canberra. But I'm part of I'm going to call it a think tank, very Canberra term probably, but at the Australian Sports Commission called the Play Well Strategy Leadership Group. So the Play Well strategy is obviously a strategy that has been developed by the Sports Commission in collaboration with the entire sports sector. So it's been co-designed. And it is all about how do we get more Australians playing more sport more often, being more active, etc. So I'm on that leadership group. We meet up every quarter or so, face to face, and this time we're in Canberra at the home, the Institute of Sport. So. There's a lot going on. I feel very humble when I'm in that room because I'm in a room full of incredible people that have done amazing things throughout their careers in terms of not just the sporting space, but we've got people in there from disability. We've got people in there from migrant spaces and so on. And it's awesome people. It's a great network to be part of. And I guess if we can do anything to try and help more people feel included, safe, welcome, and want to be more active with sport, then it's a good thing. So very aligned with obviously what we're talking about today.
And you're on another board. Last time we caught up when you were at the SCG, that wasn't this. That was
AMSI, which is it's a mouthful, the Australian Mass Participation Sports Event Alliance, which is basically AMSI is much easier. And AMSI started off the back.
You're on the board there, or
I'm on the board, yeah. And that started off the back of COVID when all the mass participation events got shut down. So a lot of the leaders in that industry came together, and I was still at Parkrun at the time, so I joined that collective, and that was all about how are we going to get mass participation events started again. And even though Parkrun isn't mass participation, but when you look at the scale of it, you add it all together, that's definitely mass participation. So another awesome group of people, and now that obviously we're through COVID, it's really about how can we just be the voice for the mass participation industry, and how can we service the industry, make sure that people who are wanting to start mass participation events or are already running mass participation events are doing so in the best possible way, and they got supported, they got everything they need to do that. So it's another great group to be part of, and I'm on the board of Little Athletics now as well up in Queensland. So that's my other board hat. So there's a bit of a theme, isn't there, with this kind of sport running thing, but that really in terms of what I talked about earlier with my values and my passions, Little Athletics really aligns with that really, really well, because obviously, again, it's about how do we get more kids moving and participating in sport and competing as well. So, it's great.
And I wanted to ask you that at the start. What do you think it is about your childhood that got you so obviously you said your parents, educators, so there was the education hat, but what was it that you really sparked your love of sport? For me, it was moving around heaps and needing to make friends at new schools, and it was playing sport was my way of making friends.
I think, look, when I reflect on my upbringing, one of the constants was that my dad back in the 80s was a runner. Before people were running, like it wasn't. He tells me stories of he would be out running and people would pull over in their car and they go, "You right, mate? Do you need a lift?
What are you running from?"
Yeah, like what's wrong?
Taxman after
why are you
him?
running? And so dad was always running, and I think that instilled in me, I guess an importance of looking after yourself. I guess that's probably it. And then I went to a very sporty high school at Nudgee College where. It's like a sports academy there, basically. So you couldn't help but get into that. But for me, even since then, my love of sport and participating and being active has always had the lens of health, as in I want to be healthy. And I want my children and my family to be healthy. So as much as, yes, it's great to run a PB or whatever it might be, my goal for, as long as I, at least the last 20 years is like, why do I go running or why do I go to the gym? It's just, I want to be healthy. And so I think when you've got that as the motivator, as opposed to, I just want to run a PB, well, I'm not going to say that that's a shallow goal, but if you don't run that PB, what do? Quit? And whereas if you have a goal of, I want to live a healthy life and set an example to my children so that they are going to live healthy lives, it's a pretty strong motivator.
Well, that's how I got into running too, because my dad always ran and I just wanted to, I guess, hang out with him. So I would go running with him. But it's true because now I run for many reasons, but I guess the main one is to feel healthy in both my mind and my body.
I've tried to get my dad running and it doesn't work. He's a big swimmer though, loves his swimming dad. So
Was your dad a rugby player?
No, Grandma wouldn't let him. He's bigger than me. Yeah, he was allowed to play soccer, but he was never allowed. Grandma wouldn't let Dad or his
Rugby's
three
too
boys.
rough.
Yeah, he went to Barker, so rugby school, but wasn't allowed to play.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, there you go.
So, any final questions, Kudos? We'll test Tim's parkrun knowledge, we were going to say, did we record? Were we recording when we asked your parkrun PB?
I think so.
We were comparing PBs before. No,
I'm not sure we were. 1825.
1825, Lily.
Yeah.
Well, now it's either 1829 or 1839. I could have, I can't remember.
Go with 29.
But no, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
What is the newest parkrun in Canberra?
Well, I definitely don't
No.
know. I can tell you.
I can tell you.
Okay,
Who organised
the
it?
first
Who's the event
Ginny.
organiser?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said it. So how many are here now? How many in Canberra?
10.
Okay.
But then there's
well,
also Queanbeyan and
Jerebbomb,
Jerebbomb, but they're New South Wales, technically.
So I mean, I know you're interviewing me, but I'm going to ask you guys a question. So what is the longest distance you can go in Canberra without finding a parkrun? Because obviously if there's 10, they must be pretty close together.
They're all pretty, because you've got I think the...
2 in Gungahlin, 2 in Belconnen, Ainslie.
2 in Tuggeranong.
Yarralumla, 2 in Tuggeranong, Coombs.
And now Woden. Yeah.
Jarrah and Queanbeyan. And then you got the surrounding regions, Yass, Bungendore, Braidwood. Coombe is missing one. Coombe is probably, but then Bateman's Bay's got one. So, mate, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think then
and they just said ACT record. The launch was 700 and something.
Wow.
Yeah,
so that was
ACT
ACT
how does that
record.
happen? Because I thought they didn't promote launches.
Oh, well,
it
was week 2.
Was there like an underground?
She didn't tell me.
I didn't tell anyone.
Me for the week 1.
I was sworn to secrecy. Week 1 was about 100, and then week 2 was 700.
So how did those 100 people know about it?
Well, we had to get some people. So we had like our volunteer team, and I think we just told a couple, family and then some people actually just look at the website on the Friday. So it goes live on the website. So we had a couple of people, actually quite a few, that just saw it on the website and thought, oh.
And there's so many little parkrun chat groups, so you get one person.
Yeah, well, there's tourism ones too that
sort of
quick. Yeah. But yes, week 2 was the big one. It was great.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Well, good on you. And what I will say is I know that setting up in a parkrun event and keeping it going, it's hard work. So good on you for what you're doing for the community, and it'll pay you back in spades though. So
yeah, well, I'm lucky it's a co-event director, so there's 2 of us, and we've got a good team. Andrew Dempster, and
he works for the PM, doesn't he? He's the PM. He's the advisor to the PM. So you got really get all the paths all been relayed.
I bet
everything's been mowed.
Has the PM done a parkrun? I don't think he has.
No,
I don't think so.
There's a few pollies there.
Yeah.
There's a few MPs there. The launch.
Yeah.
And then you want to tell the free coffees. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, from one of our I've got to get the right terminology. Foundation supporters, because they're not sponsors, are they?
Foundation support, is that a thing?
Well, it's where the people that you get the funding from, the organisations.
Yeah.
I could have got the wrong word for
Yeah,
that, but anyway.
No, it's okay.
And it's like Stockland's Geocon, so the Canberra version.
Yeah.
And then their
Yeah.
is their cafe.
So free coffee every week? Or
No,
just
just until Christmas. Yeah.
Until Christmas?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, come back and do
Just for the coffee.
Woden Town Parkrun.
That's amazing. No, well, good on you for doing it. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's so good for the community, and the feedback that you get from people, I'm sure you would be well aware of it. It just makes it so worth it.
When I clearly remember that when I started Parkrun, I know we're probably going over time here, but hey, we'll freestyle.
Chloe hasn't come kick to see you.
But I just remember thinking like that I was starting like a fitness event. You know, like that's what I thought. It was just really people who are going to like get fit and lose weight. That was, and then a few months in, I'm getting these emails from people going, "You've changed my life," and I'm thinking, I didn't realize that was going to happen, and then that just kept coming, and I was like, wow, this is about so much more than people going for a run. You know, this is, and it's about the things we've spoken about all through this podcast, which is the community connection and the being with your friends and, you know, avoiding social isolation and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't see that coming. But it's the most rewarding thing, and that's the journey you're about to embark on, which is, you know, impacting all these people's lives in this amazing way. And I'm sure Benny, no doubt with R4R, on a probably daily basis, receives feedback from people along those lines. So it's amazing the way that these, you know, what would have once been conceived a fitness event is bringing people together in such a meaningful way. So
why do you think that is? What do you think is about fitness that brings people together?
Well, I think it's a shared thing, isn't it? So you're all out there doing this shared activity, but I don't think it's just fitness though. And you know, I will often say, you know, I had a conversation just today at the Sports Commission and saying there is this need in society for connection, but that can be through sport or a run or whatever, but that can also be through a mother's group or a book club or, you know, going for a walk or whatever. There's lots and lots of different ways people can get that connection piece. And, you know, you're already seen that with R4R with all your different types of
pickleball for
events and
yoga
so on.
Yeah,
and your yoga and pram walking and all that. So I think what's undeniable is that there is a need for connection in the modern world. And I think I would put that down to technology. With the amount of technology that people are on all day, which even though you feel like you might be connected to someone digitally, but that's not the connection. Same. No, it's not the same. So I think, you know, because we're so, you know, consumed by technology that we are longing for that human touch. And that's what things like Parkrun and R4R give. So, you know, long may they continue.
Long may they continue, mate. I just thank you. For everything you're doing for Parkrun. I'm not sure I'd be here without Parkrun. Maybe I would be, but I wrote that 50th. That's how we got to know each other after I wrote that blog thanking Parkrun because 50 weeks after I did my 50th.
Yeah.
So thank you, mate.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and it's been a wonderful and an honour for me to have played a small part in the R4R journey, and I look forward to continuing to contribute because this journey is just getting started.
That's right.
Long may it continue.